Now, moving the focus to Europe, the European Union has said that it has discussed how Europe should respond if the United States moves forward with a possible bid to acquire Greenland. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the bloc has examined potential European reactions, calling recent messages from Washington on Greenland extremely concerning. Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark and a strategic part of the Arctic region. The comments come as the White House confirmed that President Donald Trump and his national security team are holding active discussions about a possible U.S. purchase of Greenland, even as Washington insists the president remains committed to the NATO alliance. Let's listen in.
Of course, the messages that we hear regarding Greenland are extremely concerning, and we have had discussions also among the Europeans. If this is a real threat, and if it is, then what would be our response? So, as Denmark has been a good ally for United States, and all these statements are not really helping the stability of the world, I would say.
Now, for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, it seems like Trump sees not just Greenland, but Europe differently than his predecessors or his previous U.S. president or the administration. Why do you think Trump sees Europe not like close ally, and there's a huge difference of his approach to Europe?
Yeah, excellent question you have raised. You see, the entire evolving dynamics during Donald Trump 2.0 tenure as president is witnessing departure from the traditional norms and practices which USA as a superpower has been exercising. And in that departure, what comes out is belligerence and aggressive stance taken by Donald Trump and his team towards extending the sphere of influence and dominance. Why is he doing it? Is because of a maybe real, maybe perceived threat of Russian and Chinese vessels and thronging along the coastline. Just for our viewers to understand, Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory, like you have rightly highlighted in your preamble, and it is a part of Denmark. Also, if you allow me, I wish to remind the audience and also American audience who are listening to this particular discussion, is that in 1951, USA and Denmark, they have gone in for a strategic partnership, and which has led to development of bases. A few bases have come up in Cold War 2.0, and some of them also were existing during Cold War 1.0. So at the least, Donald Trump and his team would do good to revisit these kind of agreements, and that would actually give them the power and authority to expand the bases which are already existing. Acquiring or buying off Greenland, which is a piece of land roughly around 2,700 kilometers north-south and 12 to 1,400 kilometers east-west, with a coastline of roughly or maybe little more than 34,000 kilometers, is actually going to create a precedent in the world order, wherein countries similarly poised elsewhere in the world also may get encouraged to extend their sphere of influence by forcible means. So this is going against the rules-based international order, which I do not think USA should actually undertake. And second, coming straight to the point that you are trying to dive into, is that in my opinion it is a wrong thing happening. It should not be extended beyond a limit, because if that happens, US should remember that it is a member of NATO, a founding member of the NATO, and Denmark is also a NATO member. And therefore, if at all there is a threat evolving, then perhaps they would do well if the entire NATO comes collectively to ensure some defensive countermeasure adopted in Greenland. Last but not the least is that why is he looking at Europe the way he is looking at? He is looking at Europe the way he is looking at is primarily is driven by the fact that the economics of USA is actually taking a nosedive. 38 trillion US dollar economy debt means around 128 to 130% of debt to GDP ratio. What it means is that they have to dole out something close to 1 trillion US dollars simply for debt interest servicing, and to run the country they require something close to 6 trillion US dollar, to which they are generating a revenue of just about 4 trillion. There is a deficit of 2 trillion here, and 1 trillion required for the interest servicing. 3 trillion is a hell of a big amount. And in the given or evolving geopolitical dimensions and the geoeconomic dynamics, the USA is feeling very insecure and threatened, and therefore it is trying to minimize its responsibility elsewhere outside the America, where it has been taking the burden of expenditure, be it for the security, safety, or otherwise. Therefore, USA is thinking of pulling back from Europe, also propping up Russia to be a peer group member for G8, restoration of the G8 membership status, as also bringing Russia back to the mainstream geopolitical ecosystem in the world order, so that the deep embrace it has gone in with China is prevented. And also with regard to China, Europe is totally dependent on China, so big threat as far as America and Donald Trump is concerned as of now is that China, Russia and the countries of the BRICS are posing a big threat towards the de-dollarization, which is actually creating a lot of trauma in the minds of the Donald Trump and his team. De-dollarization, when I say what I mean is at the peak period, dollar is to dominate something close to 86 to 89% as the international reserve currency. However, during pandemic, it fell down to almost about 54%. Now I believe it is bounced back to 56%. Experts say that whenever the dominance of dollar goes below, slips down below 50%, that will be a kind of an irreversible phenomena of the declining superpower status. And no superpower would like to lose its supremacy and authority. So there is a big scare, and therefore Donald Trump, in the big design of operations, he's trying to crack and whip up his effort to come down heavily on against the BRICS, and also prevent de-dollarization as much as possible. Back to you, Soma.
Thank you for highlighting that. Just building on your answer, Major General, two questions from me. One is that, so does NATO have any card to play to protect their territory, or, knowing that US is also, of course, within NATO alliance, but since it's threatening another NATO country, how will NATO play this out? Is NATO strong enough? And also my second question is, maybe you can just briefly touch upon this, but why do many countries, kind of forget to protect their land in the north? Just like Denmark didn't maybe do enough for Greenland, that's why this is happening. And then again, many countries in the world, they tend to forget about the importance of their land in the north.
Greenland is a huge territory. It is 2/3 of Greenland falls under the sphere of Arctic, and as we all know that the ice is melting along the Arctic. There are new maritime navigation routes, sea routes opening up, and this will entail a lot of geostrategic implications. Therefore, the Arctic Council, which at the moment comprises of 8 countries, they based on the geographic location, they dominate, or their presence is very much there. However, coming to your first question as to why not NATO is able to look after its landed property? NATO is all by itself less America and Canada is not capable. That is the European Union and the UK. They are not capable, nor the capacity permits them as of now, because they have had a kind of a free lunch all the while during Cold War 1.0 and the time period till now in Cold War 2.0. So therefore, to actually upgrade their status from zero responsibility and burden to some responsibility and accountability to defend themselves and look after their landed estate as of now is near impossible. Therefore, they are dependent on America. NATO, anything to do with NATO, less USA is as good as a defunct kind of an establishment. Therefore, their dependency is heightened because of traditional support they have been having from USA. Coming to the second point that you have raised, I personally feel that there are no better ways than diplomacy and dialogue. They need to talk it out, even if Donald Trump is hell-bent and intransigent in his approach. There are ways and means to actually defend and ensure security and safety of the people of America. Presently, he's focusing on BRICS, Russia and China being founding members of BRICS. They continue to actually expand their sphere of influence through the Arctic and coming down towards the Atlantic in a very convenient and comfortable manner, which is posing a threat to America. So therefore, at the moment, America feels that it is the only country in the world which can deter or prevent expansion of the BRICS domination in the world order. BRICS as such has got 10 members as on today. There are good about 11 members who are waiting, and roughly 50 more countries are waiting to join the BRICS. And the GDP of BRICS earlier in 1995, although it had not come into existence, was just about 16%. But the BRICS has actually grown in its size in the GDP and overtaken the G7 leading economies, and is touching a percentage of 36.7 to 37.3% of global GDP in PPP terms. And the leading economy, which was there in 1995 at 43.06% of GDP in PPP terms, has gone down to 29.7 to 30%, and therefore it's on a declining mode. And to me, what appears is that it is all the geoeconomics which is driving the current agenda, which is very, very dangerous for America to undertake in this aggressive manner. It may bounce back on their face and may turn out to be highly disadvantageous in times ahead.
With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudhakarji for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on the focus on to Middle East.